Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. We're presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Matt Pennie is in the building. Pennie, what up, Ben?
How are we doing? Have you survived and I know your calendar is a little different than here, but Sunday was like the ultimate Sunday scaries day after the holiday and after the New Year. So Monday was a big back to work day for a lot of people. I don't know if that transcends oceans and continents, but I'm back in the swing of things. I hope you are too. I don't think you ever get out of the swing of things, but maybe more so than usual.
So Laura and I went down to the beach on New Year's Eve and then got back and we were in bed by 12:06. I literally woke up to a text message from good friend of the program, Danny LaRue, at 12:14 and had no idea.
It's a new year.
Yeah. So what can you do?
Yeah.
And then I worked the following Sunday. I took New Year's Day off. I watched 3 movies and then worked the following Sunday. The Monday, the Monday disaster that everyone else had, I don't know. It wasn't for me.
It was strange here because somehow there was still a holiday that I didn't know about. It was observed for a lot of people, so there wasn't a lot of traffic. So it wasn't the full experience, which was nice.
Yeah, there was also a Monday holiday observed here too. And we went over to Laura's cousin's house to hang out for a while. And then we were just like, I guess we have to go back to work. And then they were like, no, tomorrow's a public holiday. And we're like, oh, okay.
Keep it going. Another round.
Never mind. Yeah, great. So today on the show, we are going to talk about rookies in the NBA this year. We're going to talk about Evan Mobley. We're going to talk about Scottie Barnes, Matt's best friend, Franz Wagner. We're going to talk about all of these great players that have really stood out. I think there are realistically 7 or 8 guys that I've been pretty impressed with over the course of the entirety of the rookie season so far, which is a pretty big number for a rookie class, to be honest. Then we are going to go into the mailbag section. Then we're going to do prospects of the week as always. So it'll be a nice, fun, packed show. Pennie, I finally got artwork behind me.
I know. What is that? I didn't want to call you out on it, but it is different. It kind of ties the podcast and the room together.
So behind my right shoulder, I've got it's like a bunch of Wes Anderson art. Okay. From his movies. So I think the top one is Royal Tenenbaums, then Life Aquatic, then Moonrise Kingdom, then Grand Budapest, I think is at the bottom. And then the one over my left shoulder is The Third Man, which is the greatest movie of all time. It's Carol Reed. It's from 1949. It has Orson Welles. It's the great reveal, one of the all-time great reveals in movie history.
Tell me you're Sam Vecenie without telling me you're Sam Vecenie. What are the posters
totally.
behind it? Yeah. It's beautiful. It's great.
I'm trying to figure out and by the way, these are not hung up. I literally have bar stools, just sitting on top of bar stools. Cause I was like, okay, I need something in the background so I'd no longer look like a serial killer.
Either that or a little less terrorist interrogation demands negotiating.
Right. Yeah.
As I'm in office / as you like to say, bathroom tile on the wall. It's a good balance. It's a good blend.
We were dealing with an echo problem earlier, and I was like, "Yeah, it's because you're recording in a fucking bathroom."
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Basically.
But yeah, no, I'm trying to figure out what other posters do I go with here? Is there a way for me to find some other movie things that really will work and tie the room together? And maybe I'll be able to switch it up. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the move is whenever I really truly explore the space of the studio here.
Feel yourself out. You get some stuff leaning up there, so you're not tied to anything either. You can switch that out after the show if you want to. Keep it moving.
Oh my God, I'm a fucking dumbass. Okay, let's go to rookies. Yeah. I guess that I will just ask this question from the top. Who do you think has been the most impressive rookie during the 2021-22 NBA season?
For me personally, I'm going Scottie Barnes has been the most impressive. Just because he's done so much more than I anticipated. And as a larger snapshot of the whole thing, I was thinking about this earlier. The draft before, but prior to the season of the last cycle, we thought there were 5 or 6 guys, right, that were right there at the top that could be in contention for the top picks. Some of the names changed. Like, we thought maybe Zaire Williams had a chance to be there, maybe BJ Boston, maybe Jalen Johnson. But Scottie Barnes, for me anyway, Scottie Barnes and Franz Wagner kind of slid in there, and still it's at least a 5-deep draft with a lot of depth for contributing players too. But for Scottie Barnes, what he's done, especially offensively from a self-creation standpoint, that has been the biggest standout for me to start.
So in terms of guys that have tangibly altered what I thought their ceiling was coming into the draft, I would say Scottie Barnes stands out along with Franz Wagner is the two guys that like have changed my opinion of them the most. Honestly, I think Franz is probably the guy that has changed my opinion of him more than anyone in this class. And we'll talk about him momentarily. But I mean, if we're talking about just like pure, this is the best rookie in the class, like it's Evan Mobley. Like, I don't even think it's close, right? Like you would say like what your definition there was different than
sure.
Who has been the most impactful and effective. I would imagine that you would say Evan Mobley has been the most impactful, effective rookie thus far during the NBA season, right?
Without taking anything away from the other guys we'll talk about, yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that I keep coming back to personally on this is like, this Cavs team was a fucking disaster for all of the years that LeBron was gone. And they made some smart decisions, like taking Darius Garland, acquiring Jarrett Allen very clearly has worked out and has been proven to be the correct call from them. Going out and getting Lauri Markkanen has really helped them as well because they desperately needed shooting. But the guy who ties it all together is Evan Mobley. And the guy that I think has been their best player this year when accounting for both the offensive and defensive end is Evan Mobley. Mm-hmm. Like we're talking about a rookie here who's 20 years old, who is the best player on a team that is fighting for a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. And this is an Eastern Conference that is much better than it's been in previous years. I've been completely blown away. Like I think Evan Mobley is the best defensive rookie I've seen enter the NBA since I've been covering the NBA. Look, like I don't remember the specifics of like Anthony Davis as a rookie in New Orleans, like trying to figure it out. But I remember vaguely, and like my immediate instinct is that Evan Mobley has been a better defensive rookie this year than what Anthony Davis was as a rookie in New Orleans. Just not necessarily like, I remember a little bit about Anthony Davis's rookie year. I was, 22, 23 years old that season. I think it was 23. And this isn't to say that Evan Mobley is going to become Anthony Davis and become like literally in the playoffs for me, probably the most impactful defensive player in the league, other than maybe Draymond Green. I say that to say that it is incredible what Evan Mobley has been able to accomplish this year as a defensive player holding together a defense that finished 30th, and 25th over the course of the last 3 years and is now very clearly a top 10 defense in the NBA and has been flirting with the top 5 throughout the course of the season. And part of that is Jarrett Allen as well. I don't want to take anything away from him, but these 3 7-footer lineups, the guy that makes them work, the guy that makes them make sense is Evan Mobley. So I don't even really think there's a case for anyone else for Rookie of the Year. No. Evan Mobley has completely worked in conjunction with improvement of others, but his presence has worked to turn around a Cleveland Cavaliers organization to go from one of the 5 worst teams in the NBA to one of the 10 best teams in the NBA so far. That's not to say the Rookie of the Year race is over. We have half the year left. But if we're doing a mid-season Rookie of the Year vote right now, I do not think you can give it to anyone else other than Evan Mobley. And frankly, in terms of long-term upside, I think that Evan Mobley is coming close to exceeding what I think Cade Cunningham's long-term upside will be. But we will talk about Cade later and why I'm still very bullish on him.
What an opening statement. Man, how do I follow that? First things first, hand up. I was wrong. I was wrong I was very critical of Lauri Markkanen, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. I'm like, I don't know how this works. Everything goes small. You need 1 5, not 3 of them. And then it was Lauri Markkanen's going to play the 3. We can't really shoot. Oh, they'll make it work. They'll switch. They pay Jared Allen this monster contract. The Cavs have this pick. And we said, well, you can just draft that guy. Why do you got to pay $100-something million for Jared Allen? It's all work. So Kobe Altman, my apologies. Kobe Altman also went to UMass for grad school, so I think that ties into some of it, just Minutemen figuring it out.
For honorary game theory alumni, Kobe Altman.
For Evan Mobley specifically, it's sort of like this sleeping monster has become an awakened monster. There were some red flags going into the season, going to the draft about intensity.
I don't know that I would say red. I would say like yellow.
Whatever. Flags. It was a color. Yeah. It wasn't white. It wasn't
like
red.
Red flags is like Kevin Porter getting in his car and leaving in the middle of a game.
That's right? A maroon flag, or like a color that hasn't been qualified yet on the Roy G. Biv scale. But there are questions. Let's put it that way instead of flags. Questions, right? About how locked in he can be all the time. He had a game he didn't score a field goal. Things that a potential number 1 pick would scare you a little bit. And now you turn it on and he's like all over the place. He's twitchy, he's shifty. The positional versatility is even better than I thought on defense. Like when he switches on to a guard late in the game, normally I panic and be like, well, I hope somebody switches back. I'm good. Like he's good. He can hold that guy off, force him into bad shots, rebound.
It's so funny. Like you watch some of the games early in the season, like Damian Lillard was like, oh yeah, I got this rookie like out on an island, like this rookie big, I'm good. And then he's like literally alone with him on the left side of the court. And Evan Mobley just plays him down to the baseline and completely swats his shit. Like in an early possession. I was like,
2 blocks a game, about a steal a game. He flies all over the court. He covers so much ground too that if he does rarely get beat, he recovers really quickly. And he has like the sneaky offense too, where like you're surprised. He had a dunk the other night with his left hand, and I didn't know how he's going to finish. He jumped up and he dunked it like on a guy. I don't know if it was Miles Turner or Sabonis or who it was, but I said like, oh God, like I didn't think that he was going to go like for that move in that spot. So there's still stuff to unpack with him as a prospect, as crazy as that sounds. But he's been really good. I mean, I get it. Front runner for Rookie of the Year. He's at very least going to be in the first team. I don't think he has to worry about that at all. For his offense, I do want to talk a little bit about that there. He was really good the other night. He had 24 points. He was hitting jumpers. I don't know if he had any threes, but he finished the stuff by the basket. He's always going to be a lob threat. He's always going to be able to shoot from mid-range. He's adjusted fairly well to playing against bigger players. He does kind of get pushed off his path some. Not to be super critical or super nitpick, but the shot from 3 to even extend the floor more, are you held up there that it needs to get a little bit tighter, a little bit better? Because there are stretches where the contact and the wiring energy just doesn't always translate all the time, that you wish he had that floor spacing in his bag to just do a little bit more out there to space it out.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like he needs to go and improve his jumper over the next couple of years. But like he's coming from a high enough level at this point to where I don't really have doubts that he's going to figure it out now. Like right. he's so drastically improving basically every single time we see him. He's so drastically gaining in confidence every time we see him that like I'm just kind of not worried anymore about the jumper figuring itself out. Like with these guys, like I always try to find, building blocks. Like this guy can get on an NBA court. He can be successful doing this and he can build his game off of that and then go into the summer and improve, not necessarily to make the jumper the critical part of his game, but to round out that part of his game and make him an effective player. With Kawhi Leonard, he was able to step into the NBA immediately because of his defense. And then he built off of that by getting his jumper in a good place before he played a game in the NBA, and then was able to work toward, continuing to improve the jumper, going from like a 3-and-D guy up to a pull-up guy that was like an immediate threat, right? So, you can look back through history. There are guys like this. And I always try and just like figure out, okay, let's get the guy on the court. Let's make sure he can play minutes. Let's make sure he can be effective against NBA talent. And then he can build off of that, right? Evan Mobley is coming from such a fucking high level at this point that like he really only needs the jumper. Like he does need to improve his reads. He could improve like his passing ability even further. Certainly needs to continue to add strength and get to the point where he's, instead of 220 pounds, 235 pounds, maybe. That'll come naturally, right? But the jumper is kind of the last like skill-based deficiency, I would say, in his game. And you're 100% right. He needs to improve it, but like I'm not that worried about it, I guess. Like I think it's going to come.
So with him and you, we'll get to Cade. We'll get there. You're saying he's close, or at least passing him, or they're on the same course. It's a race-ish a little bit. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We have a lot of games to play. What was, at least for me personally, I had Evan Mobley fourth. I had him behind Jalen Suggs. I had him behind Jalen Green. What did I miss as an evaluator? What did we miss collectively where this guy was not only a surefire number 2, but potentially knocking on the door of number 1? Because, again, I never hesitated last year. Cade Cunningham was number 1. Grand opening, grand closing. Cade Cunningham was number 1. I didn't even think of Evan Mobley being there. I thought he might be like 5th. Like I didn't see 2nd, and now it looks ridiculous. But how was the misses there that we can look now, looking at other bigs in Chet Holmgren, in Jabari Smith, in Paolo Banchero, and then just kind of improve our own process?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a really good question. So I had Evan Mobley 3rd. I had him beneath Jalen Suggs and Cade Cunningham. As someone who I would still take Cade Cunningham at number 1 in this draft if he was available. So I don't know that we need to like really explore that. In the case of, I'm sorry?
Like Mobley was 2 though, is my point. Like we both like really like Suggs, but like he's been much better than Suggs right now.
Right. In the case of Suggs, I think what we missed was how raw he was in terms of like making ball screen reads, and how big that adjustment it would be in terms of his ball handling ability. Like I think that you and I thought that his athleticism would just kind of carry him a little bit early in his career, and it hasn't. Like it's just not there with Suggs yet. And we'll talk about Jalen a little bit later. But I think that that's the big thing. Like I think that you and I thought that Jalen Suggs' ball handling and his ability to make ball screen reads, his ability to keep guys on his hip, to be patient, to kind of just work his way through his progressions, to steal a term like that people typically use for quarterbacks. I think that is where we were wrong about him. Having said that, like, look, I was asked before the draft, like, if you had to bet on over under 1.5 all NBA teams for Evan Mobley, would you bet over or under? I think that you and I might have done that. And I said over still. So I think it had nothing to do with Evan Mobley being misevaluated. I mean, maybe on your end, and we both misevaluated Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, no, I was wrong.
But like
I get it. I'll own it.
Yeah, but like we both liked Evan Mobley. You know what I mean? It's just that like I think that we also thought that while he's an incredibly coordinated, balanced athlete, his contact balance and ability to not necessarily initiate contact, but to play through it early on in his NBA career wouldn't be this strong.
Yeah,
I think that that's the big skill.
It's kind of cool too, because for me at least, like the best game I've seen Evan Mobley play was like the last game in the NBA. Like so rarely we have that. Like I was texting with a friend earlier about people making these Jabari Smith comparisons to Kevin Durant. So I watched every make that Kevin Durant had in college, because like to dispel that notion, right? But like you can remember some of those games, say like that was absolutely incredible. And the person mentioned Mike Beasley. Said Mike Beasley in high school was crazy. And you could point a game at Kansas State and said he had 25 and 25. So it was the best game I've ever seen him play. I think maybe the best game I ever saw Evan Mobley play was last game against Indiana. So that shows you how much better he's getting. And I saw him plenty on the circuit in high school with Compton Magic. So it's crazy. But the strength at the top of the draft has delivered so far.
Yeah, totally. So let's go to where do you want to go next? Do you want to go Scottie Barnes, Franz Wagner, Cade Cunningham? I think we should stick with those four.
Yeah, why don't we just go to Scottie just because we mentioned him a little bit to start here.
Okay, so I'll just give you the floor on Scottie. Where are you at with him?
Also, guy. He's been great. He's exceeded what my expectations were. I had him, I think 7th because I think 5th I had Kuminga, 6th I had Franz, 7th I had him. Seems low. Mm-hmm. Toronto is a team where I didn't know how the personnel was going to work with him because when Pascal Siakam was out and Precious Achiuwa kind of slid in, I thought Barnes was taking advantage, in a good sense, of these added offensive touches. And then when Pascal came back, I didn't know if the offense would be the same way. And it's been better. I mean, he's shooting 36% from 3. Never thought that would happen. And the jumper looks clean. It looks consistent. There was a game last week where he had the ball like the elbow with his left hand. He made one dribble, kind of stutter step back, squared up and shot. And I audibly said to myself as I watch games a lot, I said, who the hell is this? Because he had never taken shots like that. I just hadn't seen him hit it and look so fluid that way. He didn't take more than 3 threes in a game the first month of the season. And you can tell he's believing in it because since then he started firing at an average of 4 a game and shooting 40% in that stretch. Pair that with the rebounding, the initiating the offense, the energy throughout the game. It's just a home run pick by Toronto. They stuck to their mantra and they stuck to their mission statement of these big, lengthy wings, and it's paid off. They didn't really listen to the noise about him not being a shooter or be able to play in longer stretches. And another guy who has been better than I thought he would be and looks like an awesome fit in Toronto.
So I pulled up my numbers that I have on Scottie shooting before he got to Toronto. I have 35 games of high school and AAU sample from Scottie Barnes. He made 13 of 58 from 3. Mm-hmm. In Florida State, in 24 games, he made 11 of 40 from 3, 6 of 19 from mid-range. So 30% from mid-range, 27% from 3. 13 of 58 in the high school and AAU sample is what? That's going to be under 25%.
Sounds right. Pull it up here.
So you just kind of look at that, and I mean, you even go back and look at his
22,
his preseason and summer league numbers. He was at 33% as a shooter. So the fact that over his last, I think 11 games, because I wrote about rookie rankings today, he's taking 4 threes and has made them at a 40% clip per game. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely the shooting improvement from Scottie Barnes that we've seen has been drastic. You and I loved him as a guy that will make energy plays happen and will be a high level role player on great winning teams, I think is where we fell. Right?
Plug him into Golden State. He's the 4th guy. Awesome. That'd be the role.
We thought top 60 guy in the NBA, top 50 guy in the NBA at some point, Andre Iguodala and his ability to play point guard and defend multiple positions and be a super switchable guy. We were fans of Scottie Barnes throughout the course of the year. And I did not see, this is where we completely misevaluated. It's just the jumper, right?
Did we misevaluate or Toronto appropriately evaluates the question?
Well, I don't even think we misevaluated given the numbers, but clearly we didn't trust the kid enough to improve because every single human being that you talk to about Scottie Barnes will just say, this is an elite character person, unbelievable worker, incredible human being, across the board. People love Scottie Barnes. So maybe that's what we underrated. We underrated his capacity to improve as a player. And, I think that this is what we see. Shooting is something that can be improved in the NBA. I can't remember a player that has gone from the level that Scottie was at as a shooter to where he is pretty confidently right now since Kawhi. Like that is genuinely what we're talking about here in terms of improvement. So,
Lordy, if he's Kawhi, that's beyond a home run pick. That's
well,
a grand slam pick.
I don't think he's Kawhi necessarily in terms of his talent. I just mean in terms of like the jump from final year in college to first year in the NBA as a shooter.
Yep.
I think that like the last time I've seen something like this is like 10 years ago with Kawhi.
Yeah, I was talking to a fellow draft analyst last night via text, and the line he said about Scottie Barnes was he has a generational personality. He asked who else is like that in this upcoming draft. I said, I have no idea, but there's nobody like that kid. And beyond the numbers, too, we don't try to be total eye test people. The misses for Scottie Barnes, like it wasn't close. Like there was some
horrible
stuff. So the first half last night of Wisconsin Purdue, somebody who wasn't watching the game tweeted at me, texted me, said, "Why does Jaden Ivey have 2 points or 1 point?" I said, "Well, he had a couple shots rim out." And he did. Like they were good looks. They just went in and out. Scottie's would be like air ball, short, way right. He doesn't follow through. He chases it. It just all seems so much more comfortable with him now.
It was so robotic. His jumper was so robotic, mechanical, like not fluid. And look, like even with Toronto, like I don't think it's the most fluid looking thing in the world. Like it's not like he's like getting in and out of like complex ball handling moves and, pulling up from, 30 feet or even from 12 feet. Right.
Yep.
But the thing is that he's 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan.
That helps.
And he doesn't need that, right? Like he doesn't need the crazy complex, like shiftiness stuff. I mean, Scottie Barnes, I would take Scottie Barnes at 3 in this draft pretty comfortably now.
Yeah, agreed.
And I had him, I think, at 6 pre-draft. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Toronto nailed it. Toronto did a phenomenal job. That's the biggest thing. And plus, like he's a good defender. I think that like he has struggled a little bit more in space this year than what I thought he would. He looks I don't want to say slower. It just looks like he's still like learning what it takes to defend like great players night in, night out, whenever he's forced to defend on an island against good guards when he gets matched up with them. Right. Like it's fine. I think he'll figure it out. I think he's going to be a great defender. Maybe not quite like the all defense guy that we thought based off of his first year, but definitely like a super plus defender based off of everything I've seen so far.
Yeah, totally. So so far we started with guys we've missed on. Can we get to one that we've actually hit on? Because I think some of them we did an okay job saying like that was the guy, here's the spot, and here.
Well, here, so let's do this. So I think that I was fine on Mobley. I think that you missed on Mobley. I think you did a great job on Franz Wagner, and I was wrong on Franz Wagner. So let's do that and let's close this loop. Right.
Perfect. Great. Everybody wins. So, we had some hits, some misses, and now here's an actual hit that I may have gotten right with Franz.
Let's let you talk about Franz, because Franz is your sweet baby boy.
He is. He's probably the guy I'm happiest with on how high I had him. Like you said, I had him 6th. It was. Do I wish I had Kuminga down a few spots and him up 1 or 2 and Scottie Barnes? You're not always going to get it right, but there were for Franz some scoring concerns out of Michigan. He's a great passer. He's an ultimate connector. He's a defensive beast at 6'10". Then he has this bad last game of the tournament where he's 1 for 10 against UCLA, had a bad air ball when it mattered. And I thought people might sour on him a little bit because we do. We look at small samples. We remember the last thing we saw. There's recency bias. The kid knows how to play. I mean, I'm glad Orlando saw through it. He's shooting similar percentage-wise to what he was at Michigan. He doesn't shy away from the moments. Like, I like that he not just shot an air ball, but he had the willingness to take that shot and try to win the game. And now his confidence has just grown. He's taken 20 or more shots 4 times already this year while continuing to be unselfish. He played some point guard against the Celtics the other night, brought the ball up. I still like the way he moves. He cuts away from the ball. He allows those Orlando guards, when healthy, more freedom to kind of put pressure on their defenders. And the way he's handling out of pick and roll. And although he doesn't have the quickest first step, if he gets you on his hip, he's getting to the rim and finishing high. That's still a very tough shot to block. And then if you go into drop coverage, he's shooting the ball well. Like he's shooting and hitting threes. And it's like, if this guy has a summer So put this all together, he could like actually be a monster. And he's taking his lumps. They're throwing him right into it. I mean, that Celtics game, Jaylen Brown had a 50 ball in his face. And at the end of the game, though, he had 2 free throws he missed. He turned it over. But then the next play, he goes down, dribbles, finishes his left. Celtics came back and won. But he's a kid who you're watching develop in front of your eyes, and he's much more of this rotational 4-man that we kind of slotted him to be, and more of this, yes, you can plop him into any offense anywhere. He's going to be great, but he could be a foundational piece of somewhere too, and likely in Orlando.
Yeah, his on-ball creation ability is much better than what I thought. I didn't see him as like a secondary ball handler. I saw him as like a connector more than that. Guy that might be able to run the occasional secondary ball screen, but isn't going to like score out of them. Like he's not going to like bring the ball up the court and just like wreck Chris Middleton in like a pick and roll partnership with Wendell Carter. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't see that, especially as a 20-year-old. Like that's impossible to me. His handle and poise and patience and just like he just like fucking processes the game and understands what he's doing out there at such a ridiculous level. Like it is unbelievable why and just like how he seems to completely be poised and patient all the time. Like he's 20 and it's impossible to slow him or speed him up. Like he's constantly just operating at his own pace. Like he's good. The 2 reasons that I had him, I think like 12 or 13, something like that. So I was a little bit lower, but like the reasons I had him there were actually one thing that you brought up. Part of like the skill package with Franz was defense, right? Mm-hmm. Like I thought he should have been an all Big Ten defender last year. I thought it was crazy that the coaches left him off that list. I also was a bit worried about the way that it would look in the NBA because of his like longer limbs. And I thought that it was kind of like a Robert Covington thing where whenever he guarded on the ball against higher level, quicker guards, that they could kind of leverage him a little bit and kind of make him drive backward, or they could just like kind of get past him in a way that was problematic. So we have seen that in the NBA so far. Mm-hmm. Like you said, Jaylen Brown caught him for a 50 ball last game and it was not great. And like, he didn't just catch Franz Wagner, but he caught him for a lot of them.
Right. And he made him, I will say this, like it was a very loud 50 because it was a comeback. They went on a 12-2 run, not taking anything away from that. But Franz made him work. They weren't wide open. He wasn't had like bad closeouts getting blown by. He was challenging shots, and Jaylen Brown was a beast. And when the Celtics needed that game, so it was weird rooting for the Celtics in this huge comeback against the Magic. But that's kind of the year that we've all had. But still, like the still unflappable nature of Franz Wagner in that game, in that moment, and then when the game or the week before, we had 38 points. I never felt like he was chasing points. It was still within the flow of everything that was going on, and that was an upside type of situation when you looked at the makeup of the Orlando roster, and he's exceeded that. He's not the connector thing is a very high compliment, but he's even more so than that too.
Well, it's the connector thing is what makes him scalable to winning situations. Like it would be easy in a lot of situations to write off a guy averaging 20 points a game for the worst team in the NBA, second worst team in the NBA behind Detroit, right? Mm-hmm. Like it would be very easy to do that, I think. But you watch him play, everything comes within the flow of the offense. Everything is just like so meticulous and it fits. Like it's not like he's doing too much. He's not like pounding the ball into the ground and only going for himself. Like everything he does is scalable to a winning spot. Like you put him in Golden State right now, he is a key part of their rotation, I think. Like I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
I know that they're bringing along Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody slowly, but if it was Wagner there, like Wagner would be in from the jump, in my opinion. Like he'd be rolling and he'd be a critical piece for them. I will be interested to see what level he gets to defensively. I think he's probably going to be like a above average defender, not a like high end defender or like a, elite defender who makes all defense teams. Like I don't see that. I see him as like okay, he's really good rotationally. He makes guys work for it. He's switchable 2 through 4, let's say, and can at least like deal with 5s on the block to an extent once he gets stronger. Great scalable player to a winning situation. I just don't. I would say that he's gone from a guy that I thought would be like an average NBA starter to a guy that I now believe will be like a top 40 player in the NBA pretty comfortably.
Yeah, totally. It's a young nucleus too. They have pieces to grow on. They're not great, so probably get on the draft pick. I'm very curious to see what direction they go there. If they get the 900th guard and wing, or if they go big. But yeah, he's been kind of everything I thought of at even a much higher level too.
Yeah, no, you nailed it with Wagner. Okay. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to go to the top guards in this class that have struggled, at least in the case of 2 of them so far. Okay, we're back. Let's talk about Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
After that like rough start to his career coming back from the ankle injury, Cade Cunningham has averaged 17 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. He shot like 42% from the field, 40% from 3, 80% from the line. He plays high-level defense. I think that his passing is actually a little bit underrated by his assist numbers because that team is a fucking disaster shooting the ball. I think his overall impact on the game is underrated by that Detroit team because they're a disaster shooting the ball and he has no space to operate whatsoever on the court. I've been very impressed by Cade Cunningham basically across the board since that early little struggle that made people have meltdowns.
Yeah, people said it was a bust. I read an interview he had. It was actually like a Players Journal he did on The Undefeated, where he admitted, he said, it took me a month before I had my legs under me. And that was the Portland game. He had 26 points. But even by like game 3, I'm looking at my numbers now, and he played the 76ers. He had 18 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. He was 4 for 17 from the field, but the misses weren't bad. You could tell the game was slowing down. The injury was fading. Like some of those misses were, at his size, he can play a little bit of the bully ball ISO stuff because he is so still bigger than a lot of the guards covering him. Yeah. But then like just a little bit of the finesse and touch by the rim, you can tell like it hasn't really caught up to everything else. But the rest of the pieces have been what we expected. He's been a better defender than I thought it would be. He plays really physical. He switches. He communicates. They played Milwaukee the other night. And just multiple efforts, scrambles, cutting guys off, using his chest, and then diving for loose balls, starting the offense down the other way. I've been happy with everything aside from the turnovers. And the turnovers were what we were worried about coming in. And we gave him a little bit of a hand wave at Oklahoma State because we were saying similar things. The personnel around him wasn't great. He's a high dribble, handles a little bit loose. He's at 3.8 a game right now. I don't think it's unreasonable that he can get down to below 3 or 2.5, just like reeling in a little bit of the stuff that he does. But
and playing with real actual spacing.
Wow. Yes. Well, they're not the worst shooting team in the league anymore. By 0.4%, they're second to last over Oklahoma City. And we do have to give credit to Saddiq Bey. He's been on a great stretch here. He's had 30 points, 2 of the last 3 games, shooting it better from 3. And that's just going to open everything else up more. Are you worried at all with the camps that people say, well, Cade doesn't really shoot it well from 2, it's only from 3, and how's this all going to work for a number 1 pick and a building block for the Pistons? I'm personally not, but I'm curious on where you're at.
I would like to see him be able to get to the rim a touch easier, I would say, which kind of feeds into like the 2-point stuff. And frankly, it feeds into him drawing more fouls. Like I would like to see him be able to draw more fouls as well. Mm-hmm. I think that is where I don't even think it's like just 2-point percentage. I think that he needs to be able to more easily get to the basket and finish. Now, I think that will come whenever he gets into a scheme with more space. Like whenever
draft a shooter.
Yeah, please, like draft Jabari. Like I need Detroit to end up with Jabari Smith. Like we need to see that combination because good Lord, it's tough to watch. Like I love Isaiah Stewart. I absolutely love the guy. I think we're huge fans of Isaiah Stewart on this podcast.
Yeah.
He really just kind of takes up space in like that middle area. He like short rolls and then waits for the ball, or like he rolls all the way to the rim. Teams have no respect for him as a shooter right now, and he's big and long, and like he just kind of takes up a lot of like real estate in the paint. Yeah. You know, like Hamidou Diallo, he's on a great tear. Like all respect to Hamidou Diallo, nobody in the NBA respects him as a shooter. No one respects Killian Hayes as a shooter, which a lot of Cade Cunningham's minutes have come with him. Like it's Jeremy Grant is a guy that like I think teams don't think is going to pull right off the catch whenever he catches the ball and is open from three. He's going to like survey for a second, and then if it's a short closeout, maybe he'll pull, or maybe he'll try and like attack a little bit. So I would like to see Cade Cunningham on a roster that makes sense. Like I've been talking to like scouts throughout the year, and they're just like, this is brutal watching Cade have to deal with this roster.
Yeah. Well, it's as brutal as it is. You still want him to shoot it a little bit higher percentage. You can't mix in as many of these 2 for 13 nights that he's had, these 6 turnover nights, 7 turnover nights. Some of that's still on him. I do want to call out, not to be super corny, but also his leadership ability when Isaiah Stewart caught a loose one from LeBron James and kind of lost his mind. Cade Cunningham was the first one that like ran toward the fire, ran toward the action. He's holding back Isaiah Stewart. He's playing, I don't even say offensive line, or he's a running back picking up blitz from a linebacker or whatever it is. But it seems like he's that type of guy that's going to hold his players and his teammates accountable. And he said he wants to be a leader, and that's actually doing it and living it, not just talking about it.
Yeah, no, he is actually a leader on the court. Like you mentioned the communication stuff. You mentioned the way he talks to his teammates on defense. Like that's all real. Like you watch them play. He is a big piece of organizing them to like the semblance that they make sense with this roster. Yeah, no, I would still take Cade Cunningham number one. I don't really have much concern there. Let's talk about Jalen Green, who went number 2 in this draft. It's not been great. They're 2-20 when he plays. They're 8-7 when he doesn't play. He's averaging 15 points up until last night's 12-point outing in his 4 games since he returned from a hamstring injury. And I believe he had a quick COVID absence, maybe while he was recovering from the hamstring injury, something like that. I think it was a hamstring, by the way. Don't quote me on that necessarily.
Yep.
Yeah. He had averaged 22 a game in his first 4 games back. So that's good. I also want to give him some benefit of the doubt because he's playing next to a very similar player in Kevin Porter, who has very, very similar weaknesses to him that are only exacerbated because Kevin plays at an even wilder pace. Like Kevin Porter is like one of the least winning players in the NBA right now. I totally understand the upside, and Houston is not a winning team right now. So they're rebuilding. They should give him some leeway to work through his game a little bit. I'm not blaming them by any stretch. I just also think it's worth noting that like Kevin Porter is inefficient, doesn't defend, doesn't shoot right now. Like it's hard, I think, for Jalen Green whenever he's paired with that as his lead guard. It also like he does a lot of that stuff too, though. Like he takes a lot of inefficient shots. He doesn't really pass the ball well. He's not a defender at all right now. But that team just has like no chance defensively because Kevin Porter is often their guy at the point of attack. Christian Wood, like his effort is abysmal half the time. Like it's they Alper and Sengun is out there for 20 minutes a night, and Sengun's really bad defensively as much as we like him. They don't really have a chance defensively right now. Jalen Green plays a role in that, let's say.
Yeah, man. you were burying me and just trying to get me to crawl out slowly.
I'm trying to be the
no.
It
was frank. It was frank. It was honest.
Person,
yeah. Right? Role reversal.
He's had some great flashes. I want to give you the opportunity to talk positively about him.
He's been up and down. He was a volume guy, lowest percentage shooter in high school. He was. He got better with USA basketball. I thought he got better with the G League Ignite, and especially better once the G League bubble was over. He has taken more threes than twos, and it feels like the default for him is kind of one of those like off-balance leading threes. The flashes have been there. I mean, the game I watched, I think before the injury, he played the Bulls. He ripped it off the rim and like floated coast to coast, like by 6 guys and just dunked. And that's the appeal of who he is as a player. I still believe in the self-creation. I want the creation to lead to some easier, cleaner looks for himself at times, which you've kind of alluded to. He's been a lot better since he was out for a month. If we record this podcast 2 weeks ago, we'd say, yeah, I don't know. But you could see the growth. So maybe watch some film. Maybe he just talked to the right coaches, got in the gym and said, this is what I got to do better. I talked to an NBA scout when prepping for this pod because I'm not as in tuned and ingrained in the NBA stuff, and just asked his takes on a couple things. And what he did remind me of, which is good and kind of grounded me some, is that sometimes these athletic wings take time. I mean, we comped him to Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine averaged 10 points per game as a rookie and didn't average 20 points per game until his 4th year in the NBA. That same kind of trajectory goes for Brad Beal. It took him 5 years to average 20 points per game. I'm not quitting on Jalen Green. It's going to be ugly. He's going to take some lumps. It's not necessarily the best makeup roster-wise for him right now with Kevin Porter, and just it's not ideal for kind of where he needs to be. But we can't write the kid off yet after whatever 30, 35 games. Like it's gonna be a slow burn, and he could be a guy in 3 weeks. We say, hey, he's a lot better. Or 3 years, we say he's gotten a lot better year by year. It's just taken longer than maybe we anticipated. I did, as like the plug and play. He was in the G League, so kind of already in the NBA for 20 games. He should be ready to go. It's just it hasn't been as much of a light switch turn.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I did not expect Jalen Green to be an effective NBA player this year just because of the nature of his game, right? Yeah. Like these guys struggle early on in their careers. One thing that I think we often don't talk about in that regard, when we talk about guys improving their shooting, we often talk about the players like Scottie Barnes, right? Who go from being like non-shooters, terrible shooters, to being like competent shooters, or in Scottie's case, like he's turning into something maybe even beyond that. We often start with like the low end of shooters getting into being solid shooters, right? The same goes for guys like Jalen Green who enter with a like reasonable shooting background, right? Mm-hmm. Like Jalen Green can shoot, and those guys, similarly to the other guys, they get better as shooters throughout the course of their careers. They do. And it's really hard to play at the pace and at the style that Jalen Green likes to play at in the NBA. You can't just be an okay shooter and do that. You have to be an utterly elite shooter to play at that style and be effective consistently night in, night out in the NBA. And I think Jalen Green is learning that. And I think that he'll come back next year, the year after that, and he'll have improved even further as a pull-up jump shooter. And some of the inefficiency that we're talking about in terms of what is currently poor shot selection might not be as bad when he's 23 years old. So, yeah, I'm not worried about Jalen Green at all long-term. He hasn't been very good so far, and that's okay. Like, it's totally fine.
Yeah, hold on to the lottery ticket. We're not done here yet. But if he's taking as many threes, more threes than twos, got to hit some threes. That's all.
Yeah. Jalen Suggs, we talked about Jalen Suggs early in the year. He has been out with a fractured thumb. It seems like he's not all that close to coming back based off of what Jamal Mosley is saying, that they're taking it slow and that he hasn't really even started too much on court work yet. So we might not see Jalen Suggs for a while at this point. I'm still in. Like he's much more. I've seen the Killian Hayes thing pop up a little bit. Like, is this like this year's version of Killian Hayes? He's not that. He's just so much more drastically athletic than Killian Hayes is. That like it just gives him a much higher floor for what he can do on the court. But yeah, like I don't know that we need to spend a ton of time on Jalen Suggs because we've talked about him probably after like 12 games in the NBA, and he's only played 20 so far. So like, I don't think we need to like dive super deep. Do you have any just quick thoughts?
Yeah, just efficiency. He's sub 35% from the field, 25% from three, basically a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, making the game too difficult, just forces some bad looks. The same type of finishes he got away with in college are now blocked in the lane. And we talk about that all the time. And the mid-range, just the pull-up has to get with more conviction because his running mate next to him, Cole Anthony, who received all these criticisms a year ago in summer league in the preseason, is now kind of passing him a little bit like ships in the night. Like he's the most improved player. So it's that's another one that's interesting to track. I think he's going to get back to being sort of the player that we anticipated. Just it didn't happen immediately like we thought.
Yeah, it comes to me from just not having those like on ball pick and roll reps, like it seems like against high level athletes. At Gonzaga, he played like as sharing the point guard position with Andrew Nembhard. And I think it's going to just take some time. It's going to take him working his way through those reps, working his way through the progressions, through the reads. Progressions, because why am I talking about progressions, Pennie?
You told me. I don't know, because they keep going.
Because Jalen Suggs is a former high school quarterback. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I'm well aware. Somebody tweeted at me last night. I think Kevin did. It was that. Did you know that Johnny Davis is a first-team All-State quarterback? And I said I've actually known Johnny for a long time, and I did not know that. So of course, why not? I have to catapult Johnny Davis up the board a few spots because.
Are we sure that's true? Is that actually
1,000%? Looked that up last night. Yeah.
Oh my God! So they have two high school quarterbacks. They have him and Brad Davison.
Oh, Brad Davison. He's been there longer than I've been at UMass. God bless him.
That's true. Okay. But with Suggs, I think it's just going to be working his way through his progressions, continuing to tighten up as a ball handler. I honestly think this time on the sidelines might help him. Just seeing how fast the game is, seeing just all of that, I think is actually going to benefit him a little bit. Do you want to talk about Josh Giddey next?
Oh yeah.
Number 6. We've talked about all the other top 5 guys.
Yeah, I think you're contractually obligated to start being in Australia.
Yeah, I like what I've seen from Josh. Like, just a very high-level passer. His translated to the NBA immediately because of the way he processes the game. He's very clearly just one of the smartest players on the basketball court, even at 19 years old.
Right.
Every time he's on the court. And that really helps. There are a lot of things that he needs to improve. He really has to shoot the ball in order to be the peak effectiveness that he can be. I think he's dealt well with contact on the defensive end. He just needs to keep getting better defensively. But he became the youngest player in NBA history to have a triple-double earlier this week. In 17 points, I think 13 rebounds and 14 assists. Rebounds the ball well, pushes the ball well out in transition, creates high-level scoring opportunities for his teammates by moving the ball and by creating further transition opportunities. Yeah, look, I think that this has gone as well as it could have for Josh Giddey in his first season.
He's this giant facilitating wizard. He's good for 2 to 3 moves a night where they aren't real life passes, whether it's this laser missile dribble off pick and roll or a left-handed live dribble cross court whip to an open shooter. He's going to make your jaw drop when he plays. 6 assists, 3 turnovers. Like the first tier of guys, a little bit here, the shooting has been a little kind of lukewarm. 39 from the field, 26 from from the 3-point line, 65% from the free throw line. He's just going to see a lot of drop coverage daring him to shoot. It's happened a little bit. I actually will give him credit. The shot seems like sped up in a good sense. He's better off the dribble. When he got rolling the other night, the triple-double, he was really feeling it, and he hit a shot and started to it was less of a thought process and more of like a natural, here's my jump shot. I love the creativity. I really like some of his finishing package. He's so young. He doesn't seem intimidated. He doesn't know. He's the youngest person to get a triple-double out there. Just unlock the jumper and hopefully split the difference between he had like an 0 for the game before. He had like 0 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, then the triple-double. Meet somewhere in the middle, get Shea back, get him healthy, and that's a great core to work around.
Yeah, I agree. Like they could even use like one more like power guard almost, I think, and like use like I think that like getting like a strong physical guard, even on top of Lou Dort to play next to those two would be really beneficial for them long term. Yeah. Chris Duarte next. He's been the like among the top 6 rookies. I think he's the 6th guy. Yeah, what we thought like coming in, we both had him. I think as a lottery pick, right?
Yeah, right there.
He goes in the lottery. He's 24 years old. He's ready to play from the jump. He's solid defensively, not like a spectacular defender. He's a good shooter from 3 who you can consistently trust to make good decisions. He's a really, really good like starter caliber player in the NBA.
He raced out to a really hot start, and then he slowed down. He's injured. He's getting back to where he was. He's excellent at a catch and shoot. He can run baseline to baseline and spot. He handles and scores it well on the break. Also love him as a decoy, like one pass away, because his defender has to shade up to him, and it gives more of a driving angle and lane. My problem is this. When Indiana took him, I liked it because despite being a little bit older, he was a step in and help right away type of player, which Indiana seemed to want on a contending roster. Now, they haven't done any major trades yet. I don't know if they're going to blow it up, if they're trying to trade somebody. If they are, did it make sense to take a 24-year-old at 13 when you could have blown it up and maybe went younger, somebody like Moses Moody, who went a pick later, and developed them over time? Is it, I don't say a waste, but was it a little bit of a misguided pick based on where the line is of what the Pacers want to do as an organization?
So I think it depends on what they do. If I was them personally, I would trade Domantas Sabonis. Like I think that he's the one that makes sense to move. I would rather keep Miles Turner longer term. I think he'll be cheaper than Sabonis at the center position, and I think Sabonis, you kind of have some trade-offs there in terms of his defensive ability and his like a need to have the ball, right? So I would move Sabonis, and it would depend on what I'm doing within such a deal. Am I like totally rebuilding? Am I just retooling? Like, am I using Domantas Sabonis plus other stuff and involving a third team to get involved in the Ben Simmons sweepstakes? Because if you are getting Ben Simmons, pairing him with Malcolm Brogdon, Chris Duarte, Miles Turner as a threesome who can all shoot really at a high level for their position, that makes like the most sense in the world for Ben Simmons, right? Yep. So I think it depends on the road that they kind of go down. But if I was them, I would strongly consider what road they're going down. I would really consider moving Chris Duarte if they are going down a rebuilding track, because I think he would be one of the most valuable trade chips on the market this year, if only because he has a contract that is affordable. And a lot of these teams that are contending this year, they don't have a lot of like salary matching chips via trade, basically, just because they're like maxes and minimums teams, right?
Yeah.
Duarte, you can pair like exception and a minimum guy and trade for him, right? And it's easy to make that happen. So I would very strongly, if they're going to go down the road of a rebuild, I would move him if I was them. But if they are just retooling and trying to do like a quick turnaround, obviously keep him and build around him and make it work.
We'll take him in Boston. Could use a little shooting.
I'm sure you would.
We'll take him. We'll take Sabonis. Who else we got?
You'll take them all.
We'll take them all.
Okay. What other rookies do you want to talk about? Like my dear sweet boy Herb Jones has been incredible.
Oh, I
love him.
Yep.
Like just the best defensive rookie outside of Evan Mobley, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they played the 33rd game. He started 23 of 32 games, so it wasn't one of these COVID call-up situations, which COVID stinks. Let's start with that. If there's a silver lining, it's a lot of these rookies and free agents have got an opportunity and more opportunity, but he was starting anyway. He had 26 and 7 against Cleveland. He scored more than 20 points once during the 12 years he was at Alabama. He's shooting 37% from 3 when you and I were like, man, if he could only shoot. He's just more of a supersized two-way player version that we saw in Tuscaloosa, and now it's here. It's the NBA, and he's 23 years old. And maybe this is another guy that we have to take longer looks on prospects with translatability despite the age, because I don't care that he's 23. We're talking about he's a starting guy in the NBA, and they rave about
23.
Him. Right. Yeah. They rave about him in the franchise. And then you look at his pick. He's picked 35th. Here's picks 35 to 38. Herb Jones, Miles McBride, JT Thor, Ayo Dosunmu. Those are NBA starters. So, like, picks late in the draft also still matter. Like, you got to evaluate. They're not throwaway picks. And he was a good guy, identified. He fits everything that they're trying to do there. Like him a lot.
Yep. I like him a lot too. Both you and I had him as a first rounder, I think, in the
late
draft
process. Go crazy, but
late first. Yeah. Like we really liked him. We thought he made a ton of sense for a lot of teams. It's funny, like, frankly, the team he's on in New Orleans, I don't know how much sense he makes for them long term, because their most important player is Zion. And for Zion to be at his utmost success level, probably need to surround him with a lot of shooters. And while Herb Jones is shooting 37% from 3 right now, that's going to be his swing skill in terms of, does he stay as a long-term piece in New Orleans, or does it all make sense for him? So Alperen Şengün, do you want to talk about him very quickly? He's been great as a passer, great as a facilitator, great as ball handler for a big. I don't know what you do with him defensively right now.
I'm so sick of seeing his per 100 possessions or 36-minute stats. I don't want to see him anymore. It's not real life. He's shown some really nice flashes too. He has great footwork, like a ballerina's feet, in that he spins, he drives, he spins back, he catches you off balance. He sees the floor as a passer. He's great there. Can make plays out of the high post. The 3-point shot hasn't adjusted like I thought it might. And defense, the numbers will tell you he still gets a block and a steal a game. He's better as a weak side kind of guy, but he can close out too hard, get beat. It's kind of slow to change ends. Why? What am I? If you're an NBA Twitter darling, please mute this part. Why has he become this guy that everyone rallies around? Like, the Rockets are missing him by not playing him more and being I don't even know, like, beyond a rotational piece.
Well, I think it's that Rockets fans are sick of watching Christian Wood, like, not care on defense and, like, just, like, look disappointed to be out there half the time, right? Like, I think that...
No, thanks, not today.
Okay. Yeah, like, I think that probably plays a role. I also think that Houston fans realize their team is bad and would prefer to just see the young guy getting minutes. Like, I do think that Houston fans go, like, a little bit overboard with him. I'm not, like, quite as high as they are on, like, Alperen Şengün, future all-star, based off of the fact that he's as productive as he is on a per minute basis. Having said that, like, on a per minute basis, no center in the NBA is averaging more, or only one center in the NBA is averaging more assists than Alperen Şengün.
Don't do this to me.
Nikola Jokic. Like,
God, why? I said don't do this. Don't do this. And we're doing this. This is the problem. He's Jokic. No, he's not. He can start. No question. He can start for sure. But he's like, you still need all the great pieces around him in order for him to be a effective starter to win games. That's my
point. Here's what I would say. Part of the reason that Alperen Şengün can't play more minutes right now is, like, he fouls the fuck out of everyone on the court. Like,
that's that European translation. He's played in Turkey. They don't call fouls in FIBA, so he's adjusting.
Well, like, here's another per 36 number for you.
Oh.
No center in the NBA is averaging more fouls per minute than Alperen Şengün.
Yeah.
So, like, no disrespect to him, but like he's still really figuring it out on that end. Like it has not been good. Like I know that the deflection numbers, like I think he's like in the top like 20 in deflections in the NBA right now per game, even like while he's playing 20 minutes a night. And I think that like he's, stealing a block and people get excited.
Yeah.
He's bad on defense. Like he can't stay with anyone in space. If they get him out on an island, it's over. Like he fouls the hell out of everyone. I mean, it's not good with him on the defensive end. But they're a bad team, so why not just let them play through it? I think is where Houston fans are, right?
Like just let them play through it. It could be an NBA starter. That's fine. Let them play through it. But there's still some warts. There's still some deficiencies to work out here.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think his offensive skill level is really high. I think that the flashes that we have seen from him, their offense runs so much better when he's out on the court because of the ball movement. Because the other thing that he does a ton of, he's just constantly fucking moving. Like he's, throwing a dribble handoff and then going opposite corner setting screens and then comes back up, sets like a flare screen for another guy. Like he's just moving. He's moving constantly and he's kind of facilitating movement for his teammates as well. And it just leads to better offense that makes more sense for them. So I completely understand why Houston fans are really excited. I would temper it. I think I'm like with you. I'm somewhere in the middle, I think, right now. Like part of the reason he's not playing right now is because it's hard to have him on the court defensively and because he fouls so often that like he's in foul trouble sometimes, right? Yeah. Like also they're really bad. He's really fun. Let's just let it roll a little bit. Let's have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I would like, look, I had him as a top 10 guy in the draft, in the pre-draft. Like I would still take him in the top 10. I would not take him at like 5 or 6 or something. But like, if we're talking about like him versus Chris Duarte, like I would take him over Chris Duarte if we were redrafting right now.
I would not. I have like 20. Yeah. I'm fine there. Take a center that could start, maybe doesn't start at 20. I'm okay there.
Yeah. Like I would take Chris Duarte to help my team win right now. Right. But Alperen Sengun's like freaking barely just turned 20 or maybe even still is 19. And he's as effective as he is. Like I would take him over Duarte, but that's just me. And any other like below the line guys that we need to talk about? Like
I have 2 more I want to talk to. The one's pretty interesting. I want to talk about Dereon Mitchell.
Yeah.
And here's why. We both loved him at Baylor. I had some questions about him coming in, what it would look like just at his size. And he's a polarizing prospect because it's layered. He's picked 9th overall when Sacramento already has De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, and Tyrese Halliburton. Now, in 8, I don't know how much Kings you watch, but 8 of the last 9 games, Tyrese Halliburton has 10+ assists. Okay, so just as part of, we're contextualizing. For Dereon, he's super tough. He defends, he rebounds, averaging just under 10 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. There's shades of kind of a little bit Marcus Smarty in that sense, the winner type plays. Yeah. But the shooting is troublesome for me because his 3 years in college, he shot 29%, 32%, and 45%. And some scouts thought that 45% was a trend in the right direction. Others thought it was an anomaly and wouldn't be repeated. For now, the latter appears correct. He's shooting 30% from 3. And he's better the last month, but it's hard for a 6'1" guard when, at least me personally, I'm crushing guys like Kennedy Chandler and John Montero for being too small. And at the same time, I'm saying, I really like Dereon Mitchell when even the free throw percentage is 67%. That is usually like an indicator the shot's going to get better.
Yeah.
Then you go with synergy and tells like a really dark statistical story about most of his shooting. So I know he's a good pick and roll ball handler, decision maker. When you have all those guards and the shooting's not there, what do we kind of do with them going forward?
So a couple things. I would say that if we don't think he can shoot long term, I mean, he's like a guy that you take in the 20s. Like he's not like a top 10 guy.
Right.
I think I had him at like 11, maybe. You had him where? Like top? You had him lottery, I could right?
Pull it up. Yeah. It was definitely lottery. I'm not short term. Definitely lottery.
Yeah, like he would not have been my pick for the Kings. I understand why they did, because they felt like they needed to inject some defensive attitude into this team.
Yep.
And I don't blame them, because holy shit, has that defense been disastrous like over the course of the last few years, and like haven't been good this year either. But the thing that's interesting to me is that if this version of Tyrese Halliburton is real, right? Like what we've seen from him over the last like month or so, where he is like 17 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Like if he's going to be a legit like on ball starting point guard, I think that the idea of Dereon Mitchell is like the exact archetype of player that you would want to put next to him. If we think he's like their actual starting point guard of the future, if they like would decide to move De'Aaron Fox or whatever.
Well, yeah, that was
right?
that was my
like
follow-up.
that's kind of the thing.
De'Aaron Fox, because it's Three's company, right? It's like you probably could have in the draft taken 6 to 8 wings rather than Dereon Mitchell. I had a Dereon Mitchell as a top 10 guy, but the fit I didn't really agree with. I
hated it.
I said draft night. It's interesting. We'll see what we do here. But Halliburton's gone like this way, and De'Aaron Fox I still really like. And if like something's got to give. That's my point. Something's got to give here with the backcourt.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, something has to give with that team in general. Like they need to do something, because it, you know, they've turned it around a little bit recently, but like Alvin Gentry was like fucking furious, like just last week with them, I think. So like maybe it was 10 days ago, whatever. I mean, but look, they need to figure something out. I completely agree. Just not a good spot for like general prospects right now. It feels like if you're just going to keep piling on point guards, I look, if Dereon Mitchell isn't going to shoot, then he's a guy that you take in the 20s. I still think he's going to shoot like off of the catch. That was always my thing. Like I thought that he would shoot well off the catch and attack closeouts and use his speed and decision making to make positive plays. I saw him more as like an off-ball, high-level lead guard. I still see that. Like that's kind of where I'm at. And because you have Tyrese Halliburton, maybe that's your backcourt of the future. Like I think that's a real possibility still. But where does that leave De'Aaron Fox, who is ostensibly your best or second best player behind Harrison Barnes this year? I don't know. Yeah. Like I really don't know. Like it's a strange situation. You wanted to talk about a second guy though, and who is that?
Oh, you know who it is. I have to do one for closing the segment. I have to bring up my guy. Come on, 1 minute. 1 minute.
Go ahead.
So Josh Primo lights up the G League showcase. He outplayed Jaden Hardy. He showed he can be an on-ball facilitator, which was the knock. He didn't get on-ball reps at Alabama. I love how he sees the game, finds the roll man, places fast by the rim. This is legitimate. He was really good. He killed
it. No, you're right.
He did. And every NBA scout and front office person was sitting front row and saying, that guy Jaden Hardy's top 5. Who, like, they know Josh Primo, but like, who's that guy who's doing whatever he wants on the floor? So just when he shoots, I expected to go in. He was 3 for 5 from deep that game. My question to you, and you've dodged it a little bit. Now I'm going to put your feet to the fire here. Josh Primo's in this draft this year. What pick is he? What's his floor as a pick in this draft?
I think he probably goes in the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he goes in the top 10. Yeah. He would very clearly go in the top 10 in this year's draft. Where do I think he would go realistically right now? I would take Jaden Ivey over him. I would.
Okay.
I would have taken Jaden Ivey over him last year as well. Would you take him or Johnny Davis?
Pretend you didn't see the game last night. If I didn't see the game last night, I'd say Primo. I got to see more of. I've seen a ton of Johnny Davis from the circuit in his first 2 years here at Wisconsin, but have to see more. I'd take Primo. I hate to say it.
Yeah, but that's the range. We're talking like 5.
I like to say it.
Yeah,
the guy scoring 20 points per game in a G League showcase against pros and guys who are considered lottery picks. It's not the turnovers have to get better. He can throw it all over the place. If he's a big league guard that can shoot and see the floor and he's young and humble, I'm still there. Still there.
Yeah. No, he'd go 5 to 10 in this year's draft. I think pretty easily, pretty comfortably would go 5 to 10. The thing that I will say though is like San Antonio didn't get much of a discount, taking him when they did and developing him for a year and burning a year of his rookie scale deal, right? They got him basically at the value that he is, like maybe just a little bit lower, not much.
Yeah, little bit better, but hindsight's always 20/20. It was a calculated risk that they took. That was their guy at 12.
Yeah,
people thought they were crazy, but we've already said he's outplayed that.
No, he has. Like Josh Primo has been really good. I joke and like put my head in my hands whenever you bring up Primo.
Yeah,
but you're 100% right. Like very, very good player, and I have no qualms with what you're saying right now. Okay. Yeah, look, I don't know that we need to like dive further into this
rookie
class.
That's
like,
good.
I like Ayo Dosunmu. I like Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Austin Reeves has been fun. You know, X, Y, and Z. Right. Let's move on. Okay, mailbag time. Matthew Pennie. Okay, our first question for the mailbag comes from Adam Spinella.
Box one.
What a great person Adam is. Okay, Spinella 14. Which prospect has the best chance to be this year's version of Brandon Boston, i.e. struggles as a freshman, falls to the second round, figures it out fairly quickly in the NBA?
Oh, that's a great question. It's hard because you don't really know necessarily who's going to declare. Somebody who, just off the top of my head, the first name I thought of was Bryce McGowan from Nebraska. If he did do that and he did declare, I could see him kind of getting in the right fit and situation. I don't think he's ready. I mean, I watched the Ohio State game the other night. He's got ways to go, but I still see the moldable clay of a skill set that he can get there.
Yeah. No, I think that McGowan's might still go in the first round, to be honest. Like I have a mock that's coming this week and I have him at 30. I wonder what would happen.
BJ went 51, so it's even like a deeper dive than that.
Yeah, like I wonder what would happen with Peyton Watson if Peyton Watson declared for this draft. Like I do not have him on the mock draft right now. He has not scored a field goal, and part of this is like UCLA's schedule, right? But like he hasn't scored a field goal since before
November 22nd. Yeah, November 22nd. They've also had some COVID stuff, so they haven't played in a little bit.
But it's 4 straight games without a field goal.
I'm not sugarcoating it.
Like, yeah. So I wonder what would happen with Peyton Watson if he ended up in this draft and decided, because he is very athletic. Like he is 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, you know, very long, very skilled. He's just behind a lot of wings and is raw, and it's, you know, going to take some time. I don't think Max Christie would fall to, you know, 45 or whatever, 45 and under, but I also don't think he would declare for the draft if he was going to fall below 40. So
I think he's got the right people around him. He's not going to do that. I anticipate no breaking news, nothing here, but I anticipate him going back to school. I don't think he's ready yet. I think he knows that. A lot of crazy things have happened. Calendar year just turned. He could go on some bananas run here for 2.5 months and could be a different story on March 10th. But today, I hope he doesn't. I hope he goes back to school because
then in this draft,
Max becomes the guy, right?
Yeah, totally. Like in this draft, he could go on like a crazy 1-month run, and Michigan State could go on one of these classic Michigan State runs to the Final Four, and you know he ends up averaging 16 points a game over the course of their final 8 games or whatever, and he could go in the first round, right? Sure. Like this year is just wide open. It's a hard question, I think, this one from Adam, but like it's hard because everything is still so wide open in this year's class. But the reason I picked Peyton Watson is like it kind of seems like it's not going to go the way that maybe we envisioned with Peyton Watson early on, just due to opportunity as much as anything.
Sure. Peyton's a good name because of that.
Okay. We're going to do 4 questions today because a couple people have actually asked for this one as well. Thoughts on how you'd compare Keegan Murray and EJ Liddell as potential pro prospects and roles?
Well, I see him very different. I do too. I feel like Keegan's been pigeonholed kind of as this like 4 and not like back to the basket 4, but kind of like more traditional in a sense, where I think Keegan has a lot more wing stuff to his game where even when he catches in the post, he can like rake back. He had a nasty move against Illinois where he took a dribble. It's like, where are you going? He pulled back and hit a jumper. I said, ooh, that might be something. And
he had a few of those nasty like step back fadeaways last night against Maryland.
Oh, then Maryland last night, I think he was like 4 for 5 or 5 for 6 from 3. I just tweeted about that his jumper, I think I have his top 10 guy right now. And if that jumper like really gets ironed out because it looks right, he's a pick and pop, trail the play, but then can also handle the ball a little bit going off. Whereas EJ Liddell, the last game I watched against Nebraska, he was an exceptional passer. And when he's in the post, he was the opposite man had to like come down and help and double, and he hit opposite and dive back. He saw the floor really well, but the shooting was bad. I mean, the jumper was like really, really flat, like not even close to going in. So because of that, I have Keegan significantly above EJ. I like what he brings as kind of one of these bigger connecty type posts, but not the same level of prospect that I view Keegan Murray.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, in terms of roles, I can see the comparison. I do think that in order for them to be successful, they would play a similar role, right? Like, you would have EJ as like the trailer, the switchable defender, as like a smaller big, right? Like, the problem is that EJ is nowhere near as athletic. He's just not, right? Like, he doesn't have that, like, even the mobility that Keegan has. I think he's probably a little bit more reactive defensively than what Keegan is. Like, I think that he's very strong on the weak side. He has a stronger frame in general than what Keegan does, I think. And that allows him to be a bit more impactful as a rim protector. But like, I worry that EJ is a small ball 5 in the NBA in the same way that like Grant Williams has essentially turned into like a small ball 5 at times in the NBA.
Right. And Grant shooting the ball exceptionally well this year. And that is kind of allowed him to stay on the court. And it hasn't been an entire thing throughout his career, but in shooting 40+%.
And occasionally slide up the lineup too and like play the 4 occasionally.
And with EJ, they're going to give you space and dare to shoot. You gotta hit some. You gotta knock some down. Like they didn't have Nebraska didn't have any fear that he was gonna hit a jumper late in that game.
Yeah, I think he's farther away as a shooter than what I thought. Just it's a very flat trajectory. Like it's going to take some time for him, I think, to like really, really shoot. Keegan, like you said, like I think Keegan can play the 4 pretty easy. I do have like some small questions about his mobility defensively. Like he could be a small ball 5, but I think that he's probably going to be able to switch or like at least manage on the perimeter defensively. I don't think he's going to be a plus defender, but I think he can live out there and not get murdered.
He can manage 3 through 5. He does still have active hands, still gets out in the break. He leads the break. He leads the country in scoring. He does get a bunch of points in transition. I like that he can score when the game slowed down too in the half court. And score at different sets. I really like him. I'm higher than most, and I'm staying with that with Keegan Murray.
Yeah, last night kind of opened my eyes a little bit more. I think like I've been more like, oh yeah, like he's like a top 15, top 18 guy with Keegan like throughout the year. I would have him pretty comfortably in the top 15. I would say
he's 6 to 10ish for me.
Yeah. Okay. Next question here. We've got Aiden Lacroix 1.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
What's up, Aiden?
I don't know. LAC Row 1. I got nothing here, Pennie. Seeing the rise in sophomore lottery talent, who are some candidates that could return for next year, and what more would they have to show to make that jump? We kind of talked about this a little bit, but like Max Christie, I think is like the guy that makes a lot of sense to me. Who else?
We talked Bryce McGowan's, but the other two is Blake Wesley might be gone. I mean, he's been really good and seems like his NBA fans are growing in front offenses. Harrison Ingram's another one that's kind of on the cusp, and that's the range. I mean, that's the range of the guys like Ivy and not even Johnny Davis last year, but Ben Mathurin, and they went back to school and made themselves a lot of money by staying there and developing. What they have to do better Harrison Ingram, it's just going to be the lateral quickness, and the shooting has to get there just based on the foot speed. Exceptional passer, but everything else has to be. It's just you don't have as much space to miss when you don't have the foot speed and can guard on wings. And who's the other one? Blake Wesley. I mean, he's probably gone, so that's a bad example. But I'd say Harrison Ingram is the one for me the most to go back, and Bryce McGowan's to improve. Bryce would just be less settling on his drives. He was better the last couple of games. He had been settling for jumpers, and now he's driving the lane a little bit more inside out, as the announcers called out, and just more reps at higher level, and being a little bit more efficient and less of those 5 for 15 nights.
I think the guy that stands out most for me here is Jeremy Sohan at Baylor.
Oh, yeah.
Very gifted, very interesting athlete. Has potential to shoot it, but just isn't really a shooter yet. And his role just isn't that large right now at Baylor. I wonder if he returns for next year, if he would have like an enormous role, kind of similar to someone like Ben Mathurin, similar to someone like Jaden Ivey, and would be able to go from like, hey, maybe he'd go in the late first round this year to top 10 pick next year.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's actually some school of thought that NBA guys may like him more than Kendall Brown too. I was talking with somebody about that yesterday. I'm like, that's a little high. That's a little bit maybe of a reach, but hey, we're in a weird draft cycle, so maybe, I don't know. Not my pick, but maybe. I've
gotten that a couple times, and I don't. Yeah, it's not a consensus opinion. Let's go with that.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Last question gives us an opportunity to talk about someone that we brought up a little bit on this podcast. From O. Sklansky on Twitter. Was Johnny Davis last night the best prospect game you've watched this cycle? If not, then what is? Johnny Davis last night against Purdue on the road had 37 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals, if I remember correct.
Yep.
Is that the best prospect game you've seen from any player this year, Matt Pennie?
Yes. Hard yes. I thought about it for about 30 seconds, and just on the road at Purdue with kind of this juggernaut team at Mackey Arena, he hit big shot after big shot. It was mid-range, going to the basket. He was keeping place alive. He even had one steal in the backcourt where it's like, how is this guy like still here? He turned it over once and still like blocked the shot at the rim down the other end. Like, my bad, I made one mistake. So that is for me. And I talked to someone this morning who was at the game, and he said, you should have just seen his reactions. I said, oh, yeah, well, tell me about it. He said, none. Killer. Just like unflappable. You couldn't do anything. He was just so unmoved by the moment in a good sense that he was just rolling and playing his game. Jaden Ivey still had flashes. He got into foul trouble in the first half. Bad offensive foul. I wouldn't have called it. Anyway, Johnny Davis lived up to the high ranking that I had him prior to the game, and I'm sure that he's going to be this kind of draft darling 5 to 10 range. In short, it was 37 points. It was a monster, loud 37 points on the road for a big win for Wisconsin over Purdue, who I still really like as a potential Final Four team.
Yeah. Johnny Davis is the national player of the year in college basketball right now. I don't really see it as all that close. There are some really great candidates out there, like Ben Mathurin. I've seen some people bring up Oscar Tshiebwe because he's averaging like 15 and 15. I'm not quite as high on him as some are, but there are plenty of other candidates in the Big Ten. We talked about EJ Liddell a minute ago. Keegan Murray certainly stands out. But I think Johnny Davis is the clear guy right now. Without him, this Wisconsin team, I mean, they're probably an NIT team, like maybe an NIT team, right?
Maybe. I mean, they also went in as enormous underdogs last night and answered the bell, delivered. And it was because of him. It really was. I mean, they did the graphic during the game. Like, Johnny Davis has 30 points and Wisconsin has 25. It's like, well, luckily on the scoreboard, it just says Wisconsin. And that was good for the Badgers last night. But they didn't have an answer. And one of the reasons why it was such a good prospect game is it was a lot of it on Jaden Ivey, who's a top 5-ish pick. Yeah. And it didn't sway any opinion I have of Jaden. I still think he's fantastic, but more elevated my position on Johnny Davis.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's funny. The other thing that I would bring up too is you thought about it for 30 seconds in terms of like what the best prospect game was. Like before we went and recorded, like I thought about it for what, like 5 minutes? Like we actually
you racked your brain. We talked about a couple games.
And the other game that came to mind for me, like immediately off the top of my head, was Johnny Davis against Houston.
That's like when you're nominated for a Grammy and you got like 3 songs in the same category.
Right.
Also Jay-Z.
Yeah, it's like when Leo had Blood Diamond and The Departed in the same year.
We can
like
do
they had to figure out which one do we campaign for, right? Yeah, no, I mean, Johnny Davis had like 30 against Houston, and it was one of the best defensive games I've seen from a guard in college basketball this season. Like, Johnny Davis against Houston stands out. Ochai Agbaji against Michigan State in that opener stands out. Trevor Keels in the opener against Kentucky stands out as a really, really strong game. Paulo's had a couple of games.
I was gonna say Paulo versus Chet. Despite the cramps, he dominated that game.
Yeah, that'd be like maybe the most impressive half. Like his first half was just ridiculous. I'm trying to think if there's any others that like really truly stood out, like in a crazy. Mathurin against Illinois is another one that like really stood out to me. You mentioned Oregon State as well for Mathurin. Really that quality of competition just isn't quite as strong, but yeah, no, like I really think that Johnny Davis would have my 2 top prospect performances so far this year. And yeah, he's the national player of the year if it was me voting right now.
Good. Stamp it. We love him.
Okay. Let's do NBA draft prospects of the week. The game theory, NBA draft prospects of the week. Matt Pennie, you are up first.
I'm going to start. I'm going to go with the Kentucky Wildcat, maybe a different one that you may anticipate here. I'm going to go with Kellan Grady, former Davis and Wildcat, current
fucking
Kentucky.
Massachusetts homer. Look at this move.
Stand by. 2,000 points prior to transferring, averaged over 17 points per game at Davidson for 4 straight seasons. Took advantage of the free year, the 5th year that was allowed to student athletes because last year was so crazy. He's only averaging 11.8 points per game, but he's my prospect of the week because he's shooting 50% from 3. He's 38 for 76. He finally had his breakout game against High Point. He had 23 points on 8 for 12 from the field, 7 for 10 from 3. Last week, he was first in the country in points per possession. That type of floor spacing opens up everything else for Kentucky. For Severe Wheeler to get paint touches, for Ty Washington to get in his mid-range where he's at his best, and for Kellan to hit threes and to get looks and to get feeds. I get that he's a year older. He's a 5th year. He prepped at Northfield Mount Herman, where full disclosure.
He's like 2 years older, is he not?
Sure.
Because I think he's like 24.
He played at Northfield where I coached after I was there. But this week we've seen all these call-ups, right? We've seen these NBA call-ups, these outside top 100 guys, these undrafted free agents. Where'd they come from? So I just hope the team still do their homework. They still value shooting. They still value floor spacing, which he provides. I'm not by any means saying he's a top 30 pick, but I am saying that you always need shooting in an NBA. And for a guy that's hitting 50% from the field, for a team heading into SEC play, he is my game theory prospect of the week.
Honestly, I like it. Like it's he might end up as a top 100 guy for me. And I'm glad we're recognizing him because his shooting has actually been really big in that offense, kind of turning things around after kind of a shitty start to the year.
Yeah.
Okay. My prospect of the week is the opposite of Matt Pennie's prospect of the week.
Do you like shooting? Hold on. We have the opposite.
Yeah. You like shooting. Let's go with the guy who is shooting 18% from 3. Okay. I am going Dereon Seabron out of NC State. He had 32 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds this weekend in a loss to Florida State. He is averaging 19.6 points, 10 rebounds, 3.3 assists per game. He's essentially NC State's like lead, do everything guard. He's 6'7". He is just I think he's probably the best player in transition this year in college basketball outside of Jaden Ivey. Like just his ability to attack. I mean, he gets rebounds and he's fucking zooming. Like it's gone. Like he is attacking and it's really hard. Like at first I was like, is Florida State just like not stopping the ball in transition? And then you watch him and he's like actually maneuvering around them and he's like crossing and he's just so downhill. He gets downhill so fast by the time he's at half court that like it's just really hard to slow him down, and he finishes at the rim. Like I think that there's a number out there that like he has finished like 65 attempts at the rim this year. And the next closest guy in college basketball as a perimeter player has finished like 45 or something like that. Like it's crazy how impactful and how much pressure he is capable of putting on the rim. He's an unselfish passer who makes high-level reads pretty regularly out of ball screens. I'm not saying he's like an elite-level passer, but he's pretty good. A lot of his assists come on like same-side kickouts, but he'll occasionally make like a pretty impressive cross-corner kickout. Defensively, he needs to get better. Like that whole NC State situation is a mess defensively. They're just kind of pressing and playing up tempo, I think in part to take advantage of his incredible offensive abilities. They're not quite as good offensively in the half court. The big key here is the jumper. I think that like he can get to a point defensively where he's fine. The jumper is like the sink or swim thing for him at the end of the day. I mean, has a small hitch at the top. Does not look like he has comfortable footwork off the catch even. Like, I think it's manageable. Like, I think that it's multiple years away, but there's a world where it could improve. I have him as a top 50 guy right now. I can't quite get to the point where I have him as a first rounder. If he was more impactful defensively, I think I'd be a bit more willing to bet on the jumper. But for now, without that, I think it's a bit tougher to bet on the jumper if he's also kind of a non-defender at the moment as well.
Somebody tweeted that he rolls out of bed and he's already getting downhill. I laughed. I said that's
a phenomenal tweet.
Yeah, not mine. I like him. He was also. I watch a lot of Nebraska basketball as people are picking up here. He was awesome in the 75 overtime game. He had like 39 points and they couldn't stop him. He just got to the lane as he wanted. I really like him. We're not talking about a 29% shooter that we need to get to 34. We're talking about a 15 or 18% shooter that needs to get up. Also a little bit older. He's a redshirt sophomore. I was looking up on my phone here. He'll be 22 in May. So I don't want to say his draft clock is ticking, but we kind of got to get going here. But he's a great watch. I love watching him play. And he holds them together. He punishes the paint. He punishes the rim. He keeps the pressure on opposing defenses. I really like him as a player.
Yeah. I really wish that he was a higher level defender. That like I really truly trusted. Like if I really trusted him as a defender, I would buy in pretty strong just because I think that you can improve shooting to the level that he needs to improve shooting. I know that he's starting as low as he is. I still think I would take him, at 49, something like that, just as a flyer in case the jump shot comes, because if the jumper does come, he's going to be an impactful player. I just think there are enough holes to where I'm a bit more skeptical at this point. Having said that, he has been phenomenal this year for NC State. This is a team that would be unwatchable without him. They would be completely and utterly frustrating and miserable to view. He has made them really, really fun, actually. Mm-hmm. And just watching him out in transition has been a joy this year. He is, anytime that you average 20 and 10 in the ACC, you're going to have a real shot. You're going to get real looks. I just think that there are enough holes that while he is as fun as he is, I can't quite get to the point where I have him like as a first rounder. Even like really in the mix for a first rounder right now. I think it's tough.
No, but you know what? This is why this podcast works. I took a 50% shooter. You took a 15% shooter. We meet in the middle. That's why the Game 3 prospect of the week, you never know who's going to pop up.
Pennie, give me the shows that you've watched on TV.
So I went heavy during my my house arrest there. Not a ton. I watched the 2021 wrap up on Netflix, which always reminds you like how miserable the year was and some like events you forgot. It was weird because Hugh Grant played like they had actors and actresses play like not themselves. He was like this old English professor, which I didn't get. So I watched that. We caught up on Below Deck. Watched some Love on the Spectrum. Watched some Yellowstone. No, I don't think we did any movies this week though.
Yeah. My wife and I watched The Silent Sea, which is like the Korean
I saw that.
show on the
I did
moon.
not. No, I didn't see the. I saw the preview.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. Like good in parts. I don't think they nailed the ending for the first season. Like I have some concerns, but like the two main characters, like Duna Bay, who's been in a lot of the Wachowski movies, she's like the main character and she's excellent. Gong Yu is the other lead. He was the lead in Train to Busan for people that have seen that. He's excellent as well. I enjoyed the first 7 hours I spent with it until the last
Oh shit! I didn't realize it was a show. I thought it was a movie because both were two of the actors are from Squid Game, right?
Yeah, I think he's one of them. Actually,
Yeah, okay.
I think he is in Squid Game like briefly. I still haven't seen Squid Game. I need to watch it.
Wow.
Okay. And then, another one apparently. My wife was like pointing out, like, "Oh yeah, this person's in Squid Game." So
yeah, that's what I saw in the trailer because we looked at like the top 10 scroll of like what's new.
Yeah, not. You could watch it and like not be offended, I would say.
Okay.
Watch The Lost Daughter.
Yes. How's that? I almost watched that 2 nights ago.
Really good, really strange. Interesting little movie. Olivia Colman's amazing. Like honestly, like it's one of those movies where like any other actress you put in that role, I don't think it works because like the amount of like empathy you have to have for this character for it to work is very high. Like if you put Nicole Kidman in that movie is bad. Like it's actually like an actively bad movie, I think. But because Olivia Colman is as effective as she is, it really works. Interesting, strange movie. I would watch it. I liked it a lot. Okay. I liked it enough, I would say. It'll be like on my top like 25 list this year. I'm trying to think. What else? Oh, I watched Come On, the Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Yep.
I did that back to back with Lost Daughter for like a parenting back to back thing as someone who's not a parent. The Lost Daughter made me never want to have kids, and then Come On was like, oh yeah, like I still don't want to have kids, but kids are nice, right?
Oh, they are nice. I was reprimanding my son last night for hitting, and as I'm reprimanding him, I'm watching his little hand go to the couch and like try to sneak some chips that are on there. I'm like, dude, will you stop? Can I yell at you for like 10 seconds without you trying to like steal chips and I'm yelling at you about hitting? It's great, man. It's an adventure.
Do we need to do like a Simmons podcast level parent corner with you every week?
I don't think so.
Like no. I'll do parent corner for my pets. My cat Jerry last night.
Yeah, that's the next segment. Pets and kids.
Yeah, ran outside and sprinted underneath our neighbor's house for like 4 hours. So
how do you get him
out there? He just like sprints out. Like he can open the door.
It's not ridiculous. Like a dog. Like you can chase a cat, but that's a tough animal.
Oh, cats are so much worse than dogs to chase. Then again, like my dog's like unable to jump, like even a foot in the air because it's a Chihuahua. But like, that cat's something else. We might have to make parent corner and dog corner.
We can do that. We can do that. When it gets a little slow, like during finals week or something. That'll be a good segment.
That's the move. Yeah. That's the move. Okay, Pennie, we've gone for an hour 45 today. Tell the people where they can find your work.
I'm on Twitter, Matt_Pennie. Find me there. I'll be I say this every week, but I will be out on the road soon. Hoop Hall Classic is next week in Springfield. A couple of the college games after that, just finalizing my travel. But find Twitter. That's where I am, Matt_Pennie.
Beautiful. I have a lot of writing coming this week. I published rookie rankings this week. That came out on Tuesday. I will have a mock draft later this week that I'm working to finalize today. I also have a betting midseason awards guide as well that'll come out later this week at some point. So keep it locked at The Athletic. Go subscribe to The Athletic at theathletic.com/game theory. That is one of the best ways you can support the show. The other best way to support the show is by subscribing to the YouTube page where you can watch me and watch Pennie. He has a little ring light now. You can see his face out of the shadows. It is glorious. Go rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms. But until next time, we will talk soon.